Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our free LSNetwork webinar, Creating an Accessible Solar Economy. I'm Geneva Starr. I'm with the Canadian Urban Institute, and today we will be giving you a quick introduction on the LSNetwork program, and then we have a great panel of speakers that will be discussing how a school system in an underserved community of Ohio is now producing 70% of its energy through rooftop solar while gaining immediate social and economic gains. So really excited to hear that story. And then following that, we will be taking a Q&A time. So please feel free to type in any questions throughout the webinar. There should be this capability for you on the sidebar of your screen on the right side. So feel free to type in any time and we will get to them at the end of the webinar. Right, so these are our speakers today. As I said, I'm Geneva Starr. I'm the project manager of the LSNetwork program that is run through the Canadian Urban Institute. I will be joined by John Glazer, who's the Senior Executive in Residence for Strategic Development at Ohio University, Jeff Greenfield, who's the founder of New Resource Solutions, and Eli Flournoy, who's the Executive Director at Sugarbush Valley Impact Investments. So before we get into the Ohio story, I want to give you a bit of an introduction to the Canadian Urban Institute. We are a nonprofit applied research organization that is dedicated to achieving healthy urban development. And we were founded actually over 30 years ago now. And we work to help the public and private sectors build capacity for informed creative decisions. We help shape public policy, and we work to implement the best community practices. Through the Canadian Urban Institute, I run the LSNetwork, and that program is here to support the adoption of smart and efficient technologies to help reduce community GHG emissions and improve the overall quality of life in Canada. And it is primarily funded through Natural Resources Canada with support from CRE and Census. For those of you not familiar with the LSNetwork program, it was actually started over 10 years ago at the Atmospheric Fund. And it was started as a market transformation initiative to accelerate the adoption of LED streetlights and smart light controls. Since it's come to the Canadian Urban Institute, it has expanded to support communities in effectively designing and deploying smart city strategies to improve overall quality of life and reduce emissions. We include smart energy solutions such as LED streetlights, but also solar installations that we will be discussing today. As a nonpartisan initiative, we work to support these technology transformations by creating and sharing resources and convening conversations between stakeholders. So all of the resources that we produce are available for free at LSNetwork.org, so please check that out. We have a wide range of guides, primers, case studies. They range from a guide on best practices for developing a holistic smart city master plan to more technical primers that actually get into how to implement and procure technology. And today, the story that we'll be hearing from Ohio will be developed into a case study that will be available online and also given to all attendees. And I also just wanted to let you know about another webinar that we will be hosting on November 12th. We're going to be looking at the Blatchford redevelopment project in the city of Edmonton that is planned to be one of the world's largest carbon neutral neighborhood. And we'll be diving into the district energy sharing system that will harness geothermal energy and will be used to replace all the traditional furnaces, air conditioners, and boilers in their buildings. So stay tuned for more information on that. And if you'd like to connect with us, there's my contact information at the Canadian Urban Institute. And again, please visit lsnetwork.org for all of our resources and upcoming webinars. And you can connect with us on Twitter at LSNetworkCA. So now I'm going to introduce our great panel of speakers today. As I said, we have John Glazer. He's been at the Ohio University since 2008, where he collaborates with program leaders, research faculty, and external partners to support programs in economic development social enterprise, impact investment, and a variety of community engagements. He is also the technical director of the Social Enterprise Ecosystem Program, which assists social entrepreneurs and impact investors. Then we will have Jeff Greenfield. He is a serial clean tech entrepreneur committed to building great organizations that address human needs. And after speaking with Jeff for a bit, I have come to learn that he lives and breathes solar. He started an award-winning solar installation firm, and he has now started New Resources Solutions that he started when he was frustrated with the available third-party financing for solar projects. And not surprisingly, he lives in a net zero solar home. So really, truly an expert in solar here. And then finally, we will hear from Eli. He is a social impact investor, environmentalist, and award-winning veteran journalist. He teaches and consults for international news media companies and universities after a 24-year career at CNN. He is the co-founder of Sugar Bush Valley Impact Investments and on the board for New Resource Solution. So he will get into the investment side of this project. So now I'm going to switch it over to John Glazer, who's going to get into this project. So John, please take it away.
Thanks, Geneva. After that description of LSNetwork, I think that folks will see that the project and the story we're going to tell today is very much mission aligned to the goals of the LSNetwork and the Urban Institute. And in fact, by way of introduction, this is going to be a story about more than a public-private partnership. It will be a story of a public-private social partnership where all three sectors of economic life come together for this project. And it also will convey, I hope, deep insights into the challenges of bringing renewable energy projects to community entities, especially smaller community entities where the impact of that project might be large, but the difficulty of getting it started and going is the challenge. Community organizations, public service buildings, nonprofit, smaller organizations serving low and moderate income populations, all of these entities have, for reasons that we'll hear later, been sort of excluded from the solar economy. And our story is a story of how they get included. And part of that, since we have a proposed solution to that problem, it's also a story of innovation and of the use of technology delivered through a private sector social enterprise backed by impact investors. And so the whole story of social enterprise, impact investment, and community development will come together in this story. So, advance the slide. There we go. So this is the impact. On the one side of the screen, we have the sign outside of a school, Federal Hocking School District. This is a campus that they have where there's a middle school and a high school side by side. And then the other side of the screen, we have a picture of the students at that school pulling on a rope. And the other end of that rope is hooked up to the switch that turns on the solar array that just got installed on the roof of their building. The area here where these kids come from and where this school exists, this is in a rural part of the United States, an economically distressed part, Appalachia. It's a very small county. The county has maybe 60,000 people in it. 20,000 of those live in the city of Athens, where the university is located. Athens has its own school district, and the Federal Hocking School District serves the wider community. Good. So the economic impact, and Geneva already sort of outlined some of this, this is a big deal for the school system. Of those buildings, 70% of the total energy needs that they have are now being generated on their rooftop. And as a result of the project and the deal that got put together, they're paying less for this energy than they paid previously when they bought it off the grid. And as a result, they're saving $20,000 a year in operational costs. That's a big deal for a school like this. That makes $20,000 available for operating expenses and supplies and other mission-oriented work of the school, all as a result of a solar installation that lowers the cost of energy. What's pretty cool about this arrangement is that after 7 years, the school can end up owning the array on its building, when all of the energy that it gets produced there won't cost it anything, and it would provide 70% of the energy that they need for free. And at that point in time, the school will save over $100,000 a year in energy costs. And so the economic impact for the school district is gigantic. Beyond that as well, the project that we're going to describe and the capability of the social enterprise that is at the center of this story, it's a replicable project. It scales by repeating itself over and over again. And New Resource Solutions has a pipeline of projects somewhat similar to this. And as a result of that company connecting these solar projects with investors to provide the financing needed and developers to do the installation and make it all happen, this company unlocks solar projects for communities and opens up wider participation in the solar economy. You can see that for a school, when they don't have the capital needed to do something that is a no-brainer. If you could install on your building an energy producer that will save you this kind of money over time, there should be no obstacle in the way of that, but there are, and they tend to be financial. But at any rate, beyond the economic impact of the installation on this school, there's a very large social impact that has happened and is happening as a result. And one of them, since this is a school, is all of the educational opportunities that having an energy plant on their roof provides for them. Part of the technology that's been installed is a real-time energy monitoring system, where at any point in time, anybody in the community, and certainly at the school, can call up a display that will show them how much energy is being produced on the roof and how much energy to date has been produced on the roof and how much energy is being consumed. And it even has indicators of weather and the amount of sunlight coming down. Well, at any rate, that opens up any number of projects that enable the school to reach their STEM educational goals by, examining and experimenting with facilities right there on site. So the relationship between the weather and the energy production type projects, they can test energy efficiency projects inside of the school, learn all about photovoltaics, about how energy is converted and transmitted and used. All of these opportunities are being rolled into the educational programming of the school. And the solar array on the roof is not just saving the money and producing the energy, but it's providing teachers with a unique opportunity to fashion creative educational projects. Another kind of social impact that's really important here is that, especially in a poor rural area, the school is a major public institution. The school is one of the few ways in which the whole community comes together. And it's an engagement facility, and the leadership that the school represents in the region, the esteem that its superintendents and teachers are held in, that having these folks be champions of and demonstrators of what renewable energy can do for the costs of operation, for the educational impact, for the environmental impact, this serves a really important purpose. And as a result of this project and the press and attention that it has gotten, other public service buildings, other school districts, other public officials, other nonprofit organizations who say, you did this for them, can it happen for us? This is where the replication of the model becomes important, and where the role of the school as a paradigm, as a model, is really important. And as I said, this is a area that is full of low income population, and the notion of being a part of renewable energy and having the investment capital to be able to have that happen in their world is an unusual and rare thing. So this program, this project, not only opens up the renewable energy and solar economy for this income population and the service area, but it also creates many more community investment opportunities. So the opportunity for investments to make solar happen and the empowerment that that provides the host organizations is a big part of the story. So here is, again, another picture of that line of kids holding onto the rope, but it's also an image of what's up on the roof. And this solar array up here is a pretty big project for an area like this. The total dollar value of the project is over 1.5, close to 1.6 million dollars. And the amount of energy that gets produced by this installation is also significant. It's 1.3 kilowatts of electricity are produced. 1.3 kilowatts of electricity is the school's need, and this array produces 800 to 900,000 kilowatts of that, hence the 70% right there. So that's what it looks like on the roof, and this ceremony there was the attendees turning it on. And when it turned on, that monitor that showed them what it was doing kicked into action. So these are the players in this story, and I briefly wanted to say who they all were and what role they played. I think the least important player in all this is the organization that I represent. The Social Enterprise Ecosystem is an organization, a program really, at the university, part of the university's outreach into the area and part of its mission to be an economic and community development catalyst for the region, and to uplift the quality of life, both economically, environmentally, and socially in the region. And what we do is we work with social enterprises. Now, a social enterprise is a business. It has a market, generates revenue, tries to make money and stay alive, be sustainable. But at the same time, it also is trying to create social value in addition to the financial value of the enterprise as a business. And that's what makes it a social enterprise. And the value creation for social and public value that the business is engaged in is to a social enterprise of equal importance to the financial success of the enterprise. In fact, financial success is what enables it to keep creating that social value that it's all about. And so here we're looking for market-based solutions to endemic and wicked and hard to solve social problems. And an enterprise that ends up freeing up dollars for education in the area is a real important social value to support. So that's the social enterprise side of it. Enterprises don't get to be enterprises unless they get financed. There has to be capital, or there is no enterprise. And so the flip side of helping the social entrepreneurs is helping the folks that are interested and motivated to provide that capital to one, create a good investment opportunity for the use of that capital, but just as the social enterprise is chasing a double bottom line, so too impact investors want their money not just to create a market rate of return, but also have that impact, help create that social enterprise. Anyway, on the far right on the screen is the social organization. Upgrade Ohio is a community nonprofit. They've since merged with another community nonprofit to increase their capacity and grow their programs. But at the time, it was a hard scrabble, up and coming community nonprofit. They had a number of social enterprises going on, providing energy audits for businesses and institutions, and trying to promote the growth of renewable energy in the area. Anyway, we were working with them, and they got a funding from the U.S. Department of Energy, and it was a challenge, it was a contest, and the incentive was more funding, and the challenge was find ways to include low and moderate income populations in the solar economy. And so New Resource Solutions is a social enterprise that offers a way of doing that. And Upgrade was very much involved early on in trying to multiply the ways that low and moderate income populations could be engaged in this project. Some of those were dead alleys or dead end alleys that didn't bring about that kind of participation, but it was a very creative and collaborative process to explore it. And in the end, the solar installation on a public service building serving that population was the claim that it made in the competition for a more inclusive solar economy. So NRS, New Resource Solutions, this is the social enterprise that has developed the infrastructure to solve a really important problem, where you've got small scale facilities. School was a little bit bigger than small, but it wasn't big. But community nonprofits, public service buildings, organizations that don't have the resources to install a renewable energy project on its roof. Just wouldn't happen. Couldn't, because it's, the resources aren't there. And what New Resource Solutions has done is found ways to unlock those opportunities for those community organizations and public service buildings to transition to a solar economy and participate in it, and at the same time provide multiple investment opportunities for folks that want to make a difference in their community. And with that, I want to turn this over to Jeff Greenfield, who is one of the founders of NRS and also the chief architect of the solution to this endemic problem.
Thanks, John. Let's see if I can share my screen here. That was quite a nice presentation, or I guess introduction and overview. You didn't leave much for me to explain, but I'll do my best. Let's see here if I can press the right buttons and turn on my screen. I'll give it a little bit of a, let's see, make this bigger here. A little bit of a more background on Third Sun Solar and my background in solar. Let's see here. Stop showing screen. Let's see if I can play this. Trust me, I'm much better on solar.
I think if you just press the projector button in the bottom left.
Sounds good. Did that do it?
And one more time.
I think I might have it up on the desktop too much.
Okay, well, maybe you can just go through your slides like this if you can't get it full screen. I think that works too. Oh.
I'm not sure why it keeps trying to show John's screen. Has it been moved over to mine? Let's see, main screen.
Oops.
We did all sorts of planning to avoid this. Change presenter.
So Jeff, if you go to slideshow at the top there and click on that, and down will come a menu at the top, right above the ruler and then the stuff. There you go. And it would say from beginning, maybe.
Every time I click on that screen, it brings up the economic impact for school and beyond.
Well, right now, I think we can see, at least we can, your slide, one of them.
Okay, well, that's my goal here. Maybe I can just do it the old-fashioned way.
Okay, Jeff, we can't see your screen right now. If you could just start sharing your screen, and if it doesn't make it full screen, that's fine. We just want to make sure that we can get you in before the webinar is done. There we go. Yeah.
All right, showing main screen.
Yeah.
And then I press that, and I cannot see my screen. Can you guys see the main screen now?
Okay, yeah. I think just use it like this and just scroll through your slides if you can.
Okay. So, as John alluded to, Third Sun Solar is a solar installation company located in Appalachian, Ohio. We serve the region. Ohio is not a very strong state for solar. Has similar sunlight to many of the provinces in the lower latitudes of Canada, and also relatively low-cost energy, two of the ingredients that make California a booming solar economy. Ohio would be a C plus or a marginal solar economy, but we're doing our best to make the solar take root. Our company is going to be 20 years old next year, so we were an early adapter, and along the way we organically developed what today is referred to as a B corporation, or a triple bottom line company, where we are organized around people, planet, and profit. So we can talk a little bit more about B corporations later. We actually do have former coal mining technicians now working up on the rooftops installing solar, which is something that we're really proud of. And let's see, I guess John talked about the poverty. Appalachian, Ohio is more like West Virginia if you're not from this part of the country and you think about stereotypes of poverty and rolling hills and beautiful natural resources and an extractive historical economy. So what we're doing here in terms of creating jobs is a big part of our mission.
Jeff, sorry, we can't see your screen again. I'm thinking I'm going to send it back to John, and he can go through the slides while you talk. Is that okay?
Sure, let's try that.
Okay. Okay.
Great. So basically, one of the things that we discovered along the way is that asking an organization like a church or a nonprofit food bank or a school to write a $500,000 check or a $1 million check to put solar on the rooftop, even if the economics are pretty good, that's resources that most of these organizations don't have. They're used to buying energy every month based on what was consumed at the meter. It's a different way to buy energy. It's what most organizations are used to. So the advent of third-party owned solar came on the scene. We did not invent this. It became a business model, just like software as a service has taken over our computers, where organizations could contract to buy energy from a solar power plant that was built on their rooftop or on their grounds. As John had mentioned, one of the challenges was that size matters with these. There's a lot of transactional costs, a lot of business development costs, a lot of underwriting and deal structuring costs that would be economic in a normal situation of maybe a $5 million project. But if we get down to the $500,000 project level, those costs don't scale down, and suddenly the project deal is unviable, it's uneconomic. So this critical portion of arranging the financing between suitable projects with their income streams and their customers or hosts and the investors seemed like a big opportunity for us to improve on a system that wasn't serving a big important part of the marketplace. So in this case, New Resource Solutions, as symbolized by our logo there, is the intermediary between Third Sun Solar, the installation company, and Foundation Renewable Energy on the one hand, who was a project investor in this specific project, and then also the relationship between the host, the Federal Hocking High School and Middle School, symbolized by their Lancer logo as well. Next slide, please. So again, the complexity, the expense of the transactional cost, the long development cycle. We spoke with all the parties on this project for more than 2 years. And then, quite frankly, a lack of trust and transparency. There is suspicion of new things. There's suspicion of complex deals. And a lot of the organizations that we end up working with do say that they're not sure about who to trust and whether or not they're being taken advantage of or getting a fair and beneficial deal. And then there's also many third sons of the world, people like myself who have gone out and built a business, but we're more electricians than we are third-party finance transactional companies. So we identified that a lot of these projects are locked up. And in fact, our future of clean energy, the transition to that future is slowed down because third-party owned or TPO projects are stopped because of some of these challenges. Next slide, please. So New Resource Solutions was born, and we decided to raise capital to get this organization up and running quicker and to have a faster impact. And for that, we decided to circulate opportunities and talk to potential investors in this new and emerging group of what we call impact investors or social enterprise investors. And that's where we became connected with the Sugarbush Foundation. We had actually known their family as early solar market adapters, but it wasn't until after they had their own solar project that they had decided to form the foundation and really get serious about helping the local area make progress towards clean energy and other economic development, social justice goals. Next slide, please. So that's pretty much what we did to come up with a way to unlock this locked up market, is to create this new organization, New Resource Solutions. We're still raising money now to basically invest in software and to further scale the impact. Our goal is to be able to work in Canada, in Mexico, across the United States with all the local solar companies and the local potential project sites that are out there that would go solar, but for access to efficient third-party financing solutions. Similar to Third Sun Solar, New Resource Solutions took the step to become a certified B Corporation, where we not only make the claim that we're running the organization to serve a social benefit, but we actually engage B Labs as a third-party outside organization to audit us and challenge us and make us prove that indeed our way we treat our stakeholders, the way we treat our employees, the way we treat our community, and our environmental actions are all in line with our triple bottom line company standards. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eli, who can tell about his story of as an investor who is looking for opportunities to put capital to work in a triple bottom line approach, some of the challenges that he faced along the way, and some of his takeaways from his journey that might benefit the folks at the LS Network. So Eli?
Great, thank you, Jeff. So as Jeff mentioned, my family has been involved in the nonprofit sector for many years and created the Sugarbush Foundation, which is a partnership with supporting organization to the Ohio University Foundation, and invest in environmental related projects in Appalachian, Ohio. But we started to observe that there were a number of social enterprise or social impact type ideas that were coming out of the nonprofit sector and the environmental sector that really required market solutions to address. So we were interested in finding investable models that would have social impact or social enterprise models to deliver to us returns, not just financial returns, but also environmental and social impact returns. So let's see, I'm going to advance the slide. Try clicking. Here you go. Okay. So we took a look at, our family took a look at how can we invest for local impact? And we decided rather than expanding our purely nonprofit activities, we decided to create a for-profit company, which we call Sugarbush Valley Impact Investments. And we had, with our investments for many years, we had sort of gone through the cycle that many impact investors have gone through of looking at different kinds of screens, negative screens, positive screens for our market investments. And we really came to the conclusion that that was not sufficient, that we could not address local impact through those vehicles. So we set out in a process to determine the most effective way to join the so-called Wall Street to Main Street movement and figure out how to invest us for local impact. So we took a look at the traditional VC models for investment. And we really didn't like that model, which is essentially says, okay, we're gonna make a bet, we're gonna make an investment in 10 startups. We know that 8 of them will fail, and we hope that 2 of them will make it big, and that will justify the overall investment. Also, in this model, it's very likely that a successful exit, a successful conclusion of the investment will mean that the company will, when they exit, will literally exit the region of impact. So we definitely didn't want to do that. We wanted to support businesses in the local area that would not then leave into a highly centralized model. We wanted to retain local impact. We also did not want to follow or perpetuate the history of our region, in particular of Central Appalachia, with extractive industries and extractive types of outside investments, which come in, take the resources from the local environment, whether it was originally the forestry industry and then coal, and now there are aspects of the extractive economy also for natural gas. So we're looking for non-extractive models. So we did want to retain the focus on the innovation cycle that the traditional, the West Coast VC models contain, but we saw that model was functioning in too much of a linear way. It needed to be cyclical. It needed to be self-reinforcing. So when you follow the cycle, you have an idea, then a team forms around that idea. You put together a collaborative network in the area to support the enterprise and get the different ideas and perspectives needed to make it an innovative enterprise, and then you go out looking for investment. Well, with the social impact type of businesses that we were seeing coming out of this area, they were not quite ready for traditional commercial investment, and they were not well served by the options for venture capital investment. So we decided that that's where we were going to play there in this space, by not just providing financial investment, but bringing the connections, bringing our network of relationships with Ohio University, with John Glazer's group within Ohio University, the social enterprise ecosystem, with the local entrepreneurs like Jeff Greenfield and Third Sun Solar, and also nonprofit organizations in the local community that were often generating these social enterprise ideas. So we took a look out there, and Jeff, we had, as Jeff mentioned, my family already had a relationship with Jeff and his wife, as they were building Third Sun Solar into a successful business, and really a critical anchor business and institution in the area. My family were early adopters of solar, and so when Jeff came to us with the idea of New Resource Solutions, immediately we started to recognize that it was in fact the ideal model to plug into this cycle for maximum local impact. So we had a trusted local team of Jeff and his partners, starting us with tremendous amount of expertise in solar area. It obviously is a green concept to match the mission of Sugarbush Valley Impact Investments, and critically, the model of New Resource Solutions, it doesn't need to exit the region in order to scale. So because New Resource Solutions works with any local developer, any local solar installer, whoever that is, where the project is that has the local relationships and expertise, New Resource Solutions wants to work with those local installers so that the project gets done locally, the benefits of the project, not just the renewable and clean energy that's generated by the project, but the jobs that are created by doing the project with the local developer, and the financial, the cost savings, as John pointed out, are stay local, right? So, and this is a locally replicable, globally scalable model, because this same set of relationships, this same set of transactions, of a non-extractive process, can be replicated in any local community around the United States, Canada, Mexico, around the world. So that was an extremely attractive model to us, right? So New Resource Solutions, for for investors who want to invest in solar, this provides a model for outside investment to be brought into a local community without, again, extracting all the value out of the local community. So the investment increases the value for the local community, and it's retained in the cost savings and the energy generation and the jobs created there locally, right? So this model also allows for local and national participation in both the project investment side and the corporate investment side. So my family, as Sugar Bush Valley Impact Investments, were the lead investors, but investors in New Resource Solutions also include the local Athens County Foundation and other local impact investors. So there is ownership both at the local level, and we're in the middle of a fundraise right now, and expect to have major national scale funders joining the corporate ownership. And then in project investment, we have the Federal Hocking project was a national outside investor that came in, invested in that, and another project on a local nonprofit here was a single local investor model that New Resource Solutions is developing. So, the bottom line for all this is that this is a business model that builds sustainable communities. Because of New Resource Solutions' focus on the so-called commercial sector of the solar market, these are the small and the medium-sized projects. It's not residential, not the large utility scale solar, but these are the schools, the municipal buildings, the businesses, the nonprofit headquarters, the anchors of the community. That's what New Resource Solutions is focusing on, and it is the model is geared towards the sustainability of communities. So I'd like to open it up and for any questions that anyone has.
You know, as people begin to put their questions together and all, I wanted to ask Jeff, I mean, the essence of all of this is that notion of unlocking projects that wouldn't get done otherwise. That was part of your presentation. And what Eli described was an enabling local and community impact investors to invest in projects locally that improve and enhance the local economy and anchor institutions, as well as, you know, the opportunity to, you know, invest in New Resource Solutions itself. Well, those two things come together with, you know, how exactly does this unlocking take place? Can you describe the technology involved in this project and the way in which it plays the role in enabling such projects to take place that wouldn't have happened otherwise?
Sure, John. Thanks. So when we think of solar technology, quite often we think of solar photovoltaics and the inverters that process the power, and that's important technology, but I would call that hardware. And in many cases, more and more people are used to that and not too focused on it. The innovation now that we're focused on is more of a software innovation. And so when we've spoken with folks that might be interested and that are, in many cases, excited about taking some of their capital and investing it into a solar project versus all the other, traditional investments available to them, some of the reasons that they haven't done it yet are related to diligence. They're related to underwriting. Quite frankly, they are not very familiar with what makes project A a low-risk project and project B a riskier project. So that was one of the first places we focused. And so New Resource Solutions, in our quest to reduce the transactional cost and speed up the time of transaction for all the various parties, for the investors, for the solar developer installers, for the host facilities, the schools or nonprofits. We've built out some, I wouldn't call it simple, but I wouldn't call it, bleeding edge or esoteric software that resides in the cloud that we can then, at various stages of the solar project development, key in a very few number of variables at the very beginning for some indicative pricing and indicative performance modeling. And then as the project gets more significant traction, we would key in more details. And effectively, we're striving to get what we would call a credit score or a risk score. It's the same way that consumer finance and commercial finance has these scoring mechanisms, so that we can look at this and present it to an investor, say, hey, this is a great opportunity. Here's the risks that we've identified on a spectrum, comparing it to other projects that you could invest in. It also has these social benefits. Maybe it's your favorite nonprofit, or maybe it's a public library that will show solar firsthand to thousands of patrons. And so you might take a higher risk position in that project because of the social benefits that you're shooting for. One specific project is a much smaller one that we recently put into service at a nonprofit. The solar project in this case was 17 kW. So we're talking a little bit larger than double the size of a typical residential project, much, much smaller than this 700 kW project on the school. So this smaller project would definitely not be a candidate for third-party financing. But what we did was we identified what we would call a benevolent investor who really wanted to support this nonprofit, wanted to set this nonprofit up with a path to solar that would enable more solar than the plain donation. And so we structured a power purchase agreement, third-party owned system for the 17 kW project, allowing a local investor to put her money and to gain a very smaller return by her choice on the roof of this facility, and allow the facility then to get very low cost power from a clean source.
And Jeff, I'm just going to jump in here because someone was asking for a bit more info on the actual return for investors, which is what you just touched on there. Can you give a bit more detail on how the return for the investors work, and are the investments paid back with interest?
Yeah, so it can really range, as I just alluded to, to, barely over a 1% return, effectively a donation, a below market investment by a benevolent investor, up to what we would call market. And market is depends on risk, but ranges between 6% to 9% unlevered. And then if we lever some debt into the project, as most of these projects are levered, we get into the low teens in terms of return on investment. And that money's out there from not only impact investors that care about solar, but simply institutional investors or family offices that are looking for a diversification play where their solar project is going to pay a return no matter what the world economy does and what the market's volatility does. Most of these projects are structured based on a 20 or 25 year contract to purchase the energy produced. The economics include insurance on the equipment. They include operations and maintenance and extended warranties to pay for preventative maintenance and reactive maintenance. So many people look at it similar to real estate, but instead of building an apartment building and collecting rent from the occupants, you're building a solar power system and collecting energy purchased from the counterparty.
Okay, great. And if we can go back to the school, the Federal Hocking School System, how were they brought into this project and how did you get buy-in from them? Were they already interested in solar or did you go out looking for the right candidate?
Great question. In this case, they were already interested in solar. They had contacted us many years ago. One of the students there did a project that they wanted solar energy based on the environmental reasons and rationale. And the school, quite generously said, well, okay, well, we'll take the student seriously and look and see. And the economics were not very exciting at the time. And this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. The school said, well, let's continue this conversation. We'll find out if there's a way we can make this happen. They were interested in the stability. Even if it wasn't much of a savings, energy costs were going up and down and trending upwards. And they thought, well, it would be a benefit for us for all these other social benefits and environmental benefits. But the financial side, even if we had cost certainty, if there wasn't much savings, that would be interesting. And by the time that solar project costs had come down because of just general economic scale of the solar industry, we had built New Resource Solutions, and we came back and said, hey, I think we can make this project happen in a way that's cost effective for you as well as giving you all these other goals. So that was that case. In many other cases now, we are going out and knocking on the door of school districts and colleges and nonprofits and even municipal organizations, water pumping, divisions of city and local governments, and saying, hey, we can put solar into your system here in a way that we think is very cost effective, where we use a public-private partnership and leverage the investor hunger for building power plants and leverage your hunger for controlling your costs and greening your infrastructure.
That's great, and that actually kind of takes us to the end of the webinar here. So I'd like to thank John, Jeff, and Eli for presenting today on this really interesting project. And if there are any other questions, you can feel free to contact me. Geneva, we will also be developing a case study on this, which we will share with you. And again, please stay tuned for our next webinar on November 12th. So thank you all again for joining and stay tuned.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah.